Welcome back to JB Reviews. I did a video and I basically said that Ford's 3/4 tons have more payload capacity compared to GM's. And my friend, Mr. Matthew Anderson, called me out on it. And he was right. So yes, I was reaching just a little bit, but you have to remember that was not my only point. So the other points were valid. You didn't talk about those, right? Just kidding. I lucked out and got two 3/4 ton Chevy and Ford trucks. Long beds. We're going to talk about payload in this video because obviously this is important, right? Now, I know some of you guys get mad at me on the way I title my videos, blah, 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 whatever. The goal is to entertain, and it's entertaining to watch you guys melt down in the comment section. So I'm going to continue to do what I do. If you don't like it, you can leave. I do not care. At this point, I'm just having fun. Now that we got that out the way, let's go ahead and start off on the Ford. Now, spoiler alert, whenever I do videos, I can never get the perfect setup here, guys. Sometimes things work out where the trucks are identical. In this case, Chevy is at a huge advantage over the Ford. I'm just going to say it now because 100% there's a lot more options on this truck, so I don't want to hear it. Now, in the comment section, really quickly, before I show you the window sticker, who has the worst fanboys out of all the trucks? Whether it be HD, half tons, the manufacturer, who is it? I know who it is. I'm thinking about doing a video on it to trigger some people. So yeah, I have to do a video, and I have proof. I have proof, guys. I have proof. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at these window stickers. So we're not really discussing pricing for this video. That's not what this is about. What it's really about is weight, towing, all that good stuff. So here's the Ford. It is a long bed, as I said, and this one's finished in the iconic silver. This is a really nice spec. And I didn't mention this, but Larry H. Miller Super Ford has this truck available. Be sure to ask for Diego if you would like to purchase it. But all the options are here. Be sure to pause it. And here is the total price at $89,500, including that $19.95 destination. Here's the window sticker for the Chevy. Now, this truck's available here at Jerry Seiner Chevrolet in Salt Lake City. It's iridescent pearl, so it's a pretty paint, by the way. Standard vehicle price on this one's going to be $62,400. Now, this one does not have a lot of options. It only has the diesel and the paint. So this truck is a lot cheaper for sure at $74,880, including that $19.95 destination. Both trucks have the diesel option. Most people know this by now, but there's always new stragglers coming in. Gas engine is always going to give you maximum payload. That's why when guys are looking at the bed campers, they always consistently get a gas engine, unless they plan on doing a lot of traveling. But if you want to get two-wheel drive, that will also pick you up a couple hundred pounds of payload. Now, on the Chevy, you have the option to get two-wheel drive on this configuration. Believe it or not, you have to get four-wheel drive on this Ford. So pretty much 7.3 liter and up, you're required to get four-wheel drive. And the only truck that you can get two-wheel drive in is the XL that gets that 6.8 liter gas engine. Now, with this Chevy, as you guys saw, there's really no options on this truck with the exception of the powertrain, which is pretty much going to be there 9 times out of 10. Now, the pearl paint, it's not going to add any weight, so you're going to have chrome on the front end, but you do get standard LED headlights, all that good stuff. 18-inch wheels are going to come standard, and I do like the tires that they use. Now, as far as the capacity goes, these Michelins are LT 275/70/18. Here is the capacity right here. 3,640 pounds, 80 psi. Independent front suspension. Now, I think GM having the independent front suspension does help it a little bit on payload, because I think the front end is a little bit lighter in comparison with that solid front axle on that Ford. Now, when GM redesigned these trucks for 2020, they got so stinking heavy compared to the outgoing trucks, which is why they increased the gross vehicle weight rating. Let's talk about that for a second. Prior to 2020, every 3/4 ton HD had a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating or less. On this one, you guys can see it's 11,550, okay? If you were to get a standard bed Chevy 2500 with the diesel, it would be 11,350. So they do increase it by 200 pounds because obviously the longer bed in the frame is going to reduce your payload, so they compensate for you there. Now let's talk about this Ford truck. Now Ford on this side, it has a lot of options. So this sport appearance package is not going to really add a lot of extra weight. The only thing that's going to get heavier is probably the 20-inch wheels, but apart from that, all they do is paint the bumpers and a few other things, change the design of the grille. LED headlights come standard, and as I said, solid front axle. Now this truck has some Bridgestone dual tires. If you want to see the tire size, it's right here. And then 3,750 pounds of capacity at 80 psi. So both trucks have decent capacity on the tires. Now as far as the gross vehicle weight rating goes, you guys see here, it's 11,400 pounds. So that Chevy has 150 pounds more payload. Now the reason why that is, you guys heard me say earlier that the Chevy trucks got a lot heavier, and I think a lot of it had to do with the framing, the way they structured the framing. It just got heavier, and a few other things that they added to the truck. On the Fords, because they have aluminum bodies, they benefit with a lighter overall cab and bed. So if Ford were to go up another 150 pounds, that would add on to the payload. Also, you have to keep this in mind too. On Ford trucks, they have the benefit of a 48-gallon fuel tank, and that tank is going to offset that payload number as well. I'll show that to you guys here in a second, but let's talk about that GM for a second. My point for doing that video the other day, comparing that 3/4 ton Ford to the 1 ton competitors, is because GM, no matter what truck you get, you do not have an availability for a larger fuel tank. I'm hoping for 2025 they change that. So on this truck you have a 36-gallon fuel tank, and if you were to get the standard bed, GM would basically win there. But 7-gallon DEF, 7.4 gallon on that Ford. Now as far as the rear suspension goes, you guys can see on this one you have 4 liters in the main pack with that overload, and on the Chevy they don't give you any overloads, they just give you 5 liters in the main pack. But GM does have a secret weapon, and that is called the max trailering package. Now that package would add another, what is it? I think it goes to 11,950 for the long bed trucks. So with that being said, you would pick up 400 pounds of payload capacity. I think it's like 11,950. If I'm wrong, I'll be sure to clarify that. So in that case, this truck would actually have more payload capacity compared to the Ford, but you have to keep in mind it doesn't have as many options. So if I were to add the sport appearance package, the 20-inch wheels, all that good stuff, that would lower the number. Now this Ford truck does come standard when you get the diesel with this. It's called the high capacity trailer tow package. Let's go online and show what that is really quickly. So here's what it includes, and it does require the diesel option, and it gives you the 11.6-inch axle upgrade. It does increase that GVWR as you guys saw on the truck, and it does also increase the gross combined weight on diesel engine. So here's a moment of truth, payload capacity. Now remember, this Ford truck has a ton of options: 20-inch wheels, 5th wheel prep package, running boards, has the twin panel moonroof. I'm not trying to be biased here. This truck is decked out. Here's the payload, 3,148 pounds. Holy smokes. That seems kind of low actually. Maybe it has too many options on it. Now this Chevy doesn't have anything. It doesn't have 5th wheel prep package, as you guys see right there. All it has is leather seats, the large screens, and that's pretty much it. So all in payload is higher at 3,500 pounds. Now if you were to get the max trailering package, I think that the Chevy would win this today actually. I think adding the sport package to this truck, 20-inch wheels, spray and bed liner, which I know the Ford doesn't have, but once you add all the stuff with the Chevy, it pretty much gives you everything. I I think that this truck would still have about 3,300 pounds of payload. So I think the 48-gallon fuel tank will pretty much take away from that payload. So in this mashup here, I think that Chevy wins on payload, but I hope that Chevy does do something for 2025 for the fuel tank capacity, at least on the long beds. That makes more sense than anything. Now, if they did it for standard bed and long bed, even if it was optional for the standard beds, that would be really cool too. But yes, I think that the GM would have more payload. So I was wrong actually when I did that video. So adding the max trailering package would give you 11.9. I did look it up really quickly. 11.9 GVWR, but you have to remember, you add more weight to the truck with the leaves. The rear end goes from 11.5 to 12 inch. And I think the frame might be a little different too. Might be. So that will offset that weight, especially when you add a bunch of options on the truck. But I hope you guys liked the video. Obviously getting a bare bones truck is the way to go, but no one does that anymore. Everyone goes for the higher trim trucks or goes for a lot of options which will reduce that payload. But in this case here, you saw having a bare bones truck gives you more payload, even when a truck like this has less weight, because I haven't even shown you guys the curb weight. Let's talk about that for a second. So the Ford behind me weighs 8,252 pounds, and this Chevy weighs 8,050 pounds. So yeah, that's pretty insane. Now, as far as the towing capacity goes, Ford wins. 18.5 conventional for the Chevy, 19,000 for Gooseneck. But towing capacity doesn't mean anything, because your payload is what's gonna limit you. Once you hit that GVWR on your truck, that's as much trailer as you're going to be able to tow. So in that case, Ford does have a higher towing capacity, as you guys will see here. But I think that when it's all said and done, I think that the Chevy would have more payload. So I was wrong. I'm willing to admit that. I was dead wrong. I've always seen the F250 gas long bed trucks, and those trucks have like 4,700 pounds, but a comparable Chevy would probably have over 4,200 pounds of payload, so still not too far behind. But I hope this video was helpful. If you are looking for a truck for payload, especially to tow a trailer, obviously bare bones is the way to go. Everyone knows that. But in this case here, you do have options getting that max trailering, so if you do want a few more options on the Chevy, you can increase that gross vehicle weight rating, which would land you a little bit more payload.